that was really difficult because I desperately wanted it to work. It was tough having to deal with that rejection because, as I say, I wasn't used to that. I hadn't had that in my working life up to that point.
Hi, it's Nishi here. Before we continue with the rest of the podcast, I just wanted to take a few seconds to explain what we do. We're a firm of accountants and business advisors, and we are really passionate about helping people grow and scale their own businesses and achieve the lifestyle they deserve. To do this, we've created a series of resources on our website, unrelentingdrive.com. So once you've got a few minutes after this episode, it's definitely worth checking that out. And just a quick reminder, if you do enjoy this episode, just remember to like, share, follow, and subscribe. Today, I'm really excited to be joined by Ricky Knight from Fitter Bodies franchise. Hi, Ricky. Thanks for joining us. Hope you like our new studio.
Indeed. Very impressive. Yeah, thinking of copying it.
If you could just start off with telling us a bit about your background and how you got into business, and then we'll take it from there.
I guess as far as my first business, being a business owner, it landed on my lap a little bit insofar as I used to work in a financial services company and we used to specialise in mortgages more than anything else. And that's where my career was up to that point, actually. My experience was working at sort of big corporate organisations regarding financial services. And then I worked for a local independent company. And then in 2004, they decided to sell it. And the first point of call was an MBO. So they offered it to myself and 4 of the senior management team. So there were 5 of us that raised the money that was necessary to buy this company. And, just between us, I think we paid just over $1 million for it. From 2004 up until 2007. And do you know what, actually, it's probably quite important to touch on the bit before that, because it felt like, this is me in my 20s, it felt like that pretty much everything up to that point, everything that I touched turned to gold, honestly. And I had a horrible ego in my 20s as well that went with that, because I honestly, whatever I tried, I was good at it. And so this came along, and so I had that, like, there's nothing in me that thought, we can't make a success of this. And so from 2004 to 2007, it was successful. But, this is during a market where I think it would have been quite hard not to be successful.
I mean, I'm sure you had to put a lot of effort and skill into it as well. Did you, when you said management by how many of you was it?
5.
5 of you, okay. And were you a qualified financial advisor at the time? Okay, fine. Yeah. And when you did the management buyout, how did you organise that amongst yourselves? Did you all have different roles in the business? What was your role?
At that point, I was based down in Milton Keynes, and we had offices in Milton Keynes and Luton. So I took on the sales director role for Milton Keynes and Luton. Day to day, it wasn't that different as far as what I was doing. It wasn't that different to what I was doing before the MBO. And bear in mind that the MBO itself, it took 4 to 6 months for it to go through. So yeah, and so the build up to that, even though we knew it was happening, we knew it was going to go on, we were preparing for that, but it's not as if it then went through and then all of a sudden the next day, the next week, our roles drastically changed. We had the extra responsibility that came with it as a board, as a team of directors, with regards to, I guess, more the strategy and the vision about what we wanted to do with the company, where we wanted to take it. And those bits we didn't have much of a responsibility before the MBO or need to do. But
what happened to the owners? Did they leave on the buyout day, or did they hang around?
No, they left. It was actually they're known to be an estate agency, and when they set up the estate agents, they then had the financial services arm to it, which made complete sense, because if people are buying their homes, then it meant that they had in-house mortgage advisors in each of the offices. They then grew to a point, though, where I think the financial services bit, it wasn't their passion. Their passion was the estate agency side. And so it grew to a point where it was kind of like they wanted to free up time to be able to focus purely on the estate agency side of things. And it just made sense that they then relinquished that part. But moving forward, there was still this exclusivity regarding the deal that we had in place, whereby all of our mortgage advisors that were based in their offices could carry on like that. They were only going to recommend, they were still going to recommend when people buy their homes that they still use us.
So it's almost like it was the other way around. Like a lot of businesses go from a joint venture to a partnership, whereas I guess you guys went from a partnership to the joint venture, and but that makes sense because sometimes that actually suits people really well.
It did at the time, yeah, absolutely.
And was that your first experience really running a business?
Yes, that's 2004. So yeah, that was the first time. And it was a steep. I guess it was a steep learning curve because this is a business that was turning over. Yeah, at the time it was like ended up a million to something like that, and 1.2 million, and there were about 25 staff at the time. We grew it to a point where including us, and then we grew it to a point where there was about 32 staff and 1.8 million, and it was from going from being an employee, all those years, to then all of a sudden running a business like that. I took to it quite easily, just purely because, as I say, my ego at the time was just kind of like, look at me, I've just bought this company for over £1 million. And honestly, I was an idiot, but still in my 20s. This is before I had kids. I was quite immature.
I mean, I think you were doing a lot more than most 20-year-olds were doing at that point. So I'd say that's you'd probably achieved even a lot up to that point. It's, if you don't mind me asking, like normally people start with their childhood a little bit. So, like, what was your upbringing like? How do you get to the point where you were that cocky? Sorry, in your own words.
Yeah, yeah. So, pretty normal. I would say, got a brother, got a sister, moved around a bit, but it was good. I was never a great fit with school. I just wanted to, from as young as I can remember, I wanted to make money. Whether that was, I remember at a very early age saying to my dad, "I'm going to have your job one day." Whether it was start a paper round, and then, with the paper round, I'd get my brother to help me do half the work and only give him a pound, and I was getting £7, and but he was 3 years younger than me, but just doing those sorts of things because I wanted to be able to make money. And I remember when finishing A levels, which couldn't come soon enough, and then all my friends went off to university, and then I just wanted to get out and earn money. So just got a crappy job, data entry or something like that. But living at home, actually, having working full time, having a regular pay packet, I felt like I was earning good money. And then all my friends started coming back from university saying how much of a great time they were having. So I thought, do you know what? I quite fancy a little bit of that. So this is 18, 19. And so decided to save up money to then go to university a year later. I've had a year where I've been working and earning money, and then I was at university for this week, spending the money that I had earned so I'm a year older, whilst I'm surrounded by a load of other people, students that were there on mum and dad's money. And I was something just didn't feel right. I'd even though I was still very immature at that age, I'd grown up in other ways over that previous 12 months. And I realised very quickly that university was not going to be for me. So left after freshers week.
That's the best part. And then it just goes downhill from there. As soon as you pick up a textbook, really, It
wasn't for me. The studying bit was just not for me at all. So came back, drifted a little bit, working in a hotel at the time, and then after that, my dad he got me a job with this big insurance company called Pearl Assurance. Not even sure if they're even going these days. And the day that I joined was the day that he was made redundant. It was almost like they were sort of trying to get this sort of fresh young blood through the doors and sort of get some of the older generation out, and I benefited from that. He helped me, as I say, get the job, and I did that. And that was great for me at the time because I was 19 and I got all my qualifications then, all my financial services qualifications from them, and I had a great mentor there as well, a guy called Pete Dawes, who was brilliant with me, and he taught me how to sell. But he did things in a way whereby you can, and this is why I got on with him so great, is that there's almost like the textbook way of doing things, and then there's one that isn't textbook. It's a little bit more rogue,
But still gets the job done.
but you get the job done, and the lines are maybe a little bit, right, it's a bit grey. It's in that grey, operating in the grey area, where certainly in the financial services industry, where things are very black and white.
I'm assuming it wasn't Wolf of Wall Street or anything like that.
You say that, so not then, but I definitely have had that Wolf of Wall Street experience, and that was a few years later.
Okay.
Because, so yeah, I had this sort of great mentor, did very well. So I was sort of, 19, 20, and it actually pissed off a lot of the older guys that were in the office, that this young whippersnapper would come in. I remember doing stuff like, it wasn't cold calling, but it was calling up existing, maybe old clients that might have taken out an insurance policy like 20 years ago, and they still got their details, and it's just like calling people up like that. And I remember that they were like struggling for sales as an office, and everyone in, there's about 20 agents in there in this room, and the guy is like, right, we're going to do some cold calls now, and call some of these old clients up and like try and get appointments. And I was just 100% all for that. Like he said, right, who's going to have to go first? And there was me, this young whippersnapper. I was just like, yeah, me. And it just put a few of the old guys' noses out of joint. So I'd get up there, and I was just like on the phone. I was getting appointments. I was getting no's along the way as well, but I was getting appointments. And then I was doing things like going to appointments, and then I would knock on the neighbour's door and ask them what they were doing for like their insurance and stuff. And so it was, I was taught all of that by this other guy, Pete. And the thing is, at that age, is that I just think that you benefit almost by being naive, by not fearing rejection or anything. Just I was naive enough to just listen. Whatever Pete said, I would do. So Newport Pagnell High Street, for example, we need to get business insurance quotes. We're just going to, you do one side, I'll do the other side, go in every shop and just get renewal dates. And I thought nothing of doing that, because he said, this is what we're going to do. And he was doing it, and then I was doing it. And as I say, I don't know, it was just a really good grounding for me in the years to come.
Why did he pick you? Like out?
He didn't pick me. He wasn't the guy that recruited me. I was just given to him. And funny enough, like he knew my dad. He was sort of closer to my dad's age than anything. But he was just a great guy to sort of teach me how to, rather than just sit back and wait for the phone to ring, rather than just wait for, be an order taker and wait for things to happen. He taught me from a very early age to go out and just make things happen.
I talk to a lot of successful business owners now, and one thing many of them do have in common, probably more than they don't have in common, is that they didn't go to university. A lot of them went straight into something. Some of them are really successful. They didn't even go finish school, but they are incredibly bright. Like they're incredibly intelligent in maybe not a non-academic way, but they know their numbers. They know the actions they need to take. That's actually, I think, in business, that's a sign of high level of intelligence. A lot of the time, you got so many people that know what they want, but not enough people that know what they need to do. And that's one thing I've noticed about that group as well. So, yeah, I guess that is it is really good that you had that from an early age. I guess then going back to the management buyout, and then you were running it, but there was 5 of you. How did that go? Did you all get on?
We were the senior management team, so we knew each other really well. We knew each other's partners ever so well. Like, yeah, we did get on.
In terms of the sales team, was it a sales team you pretty much built from scratch, or?
It was, when I say built from scratch, it was built from scratch in the previous, under the previous ownership. I joined the company when there were only 2 mortgage advisors at the time, maybe 3, and by the time the MBO went through, I think we had 12.
And were you already managing that team at that point?
Yes.
Okay, fine. And then you continued to direct it.
Yeah.
And how old were you at that stage?
28.
Okay, right.
28 when it went through.
So did you? I mean, one of the things that eludes a lot of small business owners, because I come across a lot of clients, especially maybe in digital marketing, maybe in service-based businesses, and they just struggle to build that sales team. I don't know. Maybe it's the candidates at the moment, just because I think the cost of a sales candidate's gone up disproportionately to pretty much any other type of employee. But did you struggle to recruit back then? Recruit good people?
No, as I say, and I remember. Okay, so with regards to using employment agencies, yes, we did. Okay. And so, it just going back to some of the things that my original mentor Pete taught me, it's a case of, right, if stuff isn't happening, then go and make it happen. Yeah. So I used to then go, I remember doing it. I used to mystery shop here in Northampton. I'd go down the high street and I'd go into the banks, I'd go into the building societies, and I'd line up just loads of appointments with the mortgage advisors. And then one of them, actually, I remember, she worked at the Coventry Building Society, and I was blown away. I thought she was absolutely amazing. I thought she was brilliant. And we ended up getting her. And so it was a case of like mystery shopping, the competition, finding out who was good, and then approaching them.
I hadn't actually thought of that before, but that's a really good that's a good way to go.
Like I say, it was because of that grounding that I had. It was, and I've always had that. If things aren't happening, then think outside the box and go and make. If something ain't working, then just go and make it happen.
Take some kind of action. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And are you comfortable talking about I guess what happened after 2007?
Up until 2007, things were going great, and then the credit crunch hit. And do you know what? I remember being on holiday in France, south of France, and I remember I got this newspaper. Like my little boy was only ever so young, and he was in the paddling pool area, and I was on the sunbed, and I can just remember the early signs. So this would have been August, September time, 2007, and I was reading stuff then about banks. A bit like now, actually, isn't it? It's just almost like history repeating itself at the moment with everything going on with Credit Suisse and that. I was just reading these early signs in the financial pages, and I was just, and this is before it became blew up mainstream, and I was just thinking, this doesn't look good. And bearing in mind that I don't know if you've seen what's the film, The Big Short.
Absolutely, yeah.
Amazing film. Yeah. But if you can imagine when they head down to Florida and they check out they go and interview. Yes, and you've got these strippers that are talking about all of these mortgages that they keep getting, and like self-certifying their mortgages, because it's just like, how many multiples of your income. Like, I didn't have to do that. I just signed to say I could afford it. Yeah. That was us. Like, that's how easy things were. Yeah. Not all of the time, obviously, but if you had a good enough deposit, then in fact, even if you didn't have a deposit, there were 125% loans that we were arranging. Yeah. It was, in Northern Rock, absolutely, yeah, did plenty of those, but everyone was doing it, and so it was crazy times. But going back to what I was saying before, there was no real skill in that. It was a bit like order taking. The market was rising. The demand was huge. People were just banging your door down to get an appointment to get the house of their dreams. Even if they didn't have a deposit, we could sort it out for them. And as I say, it was an easy time to grow and make money, and that's what we were doing. So I remember our outgoings were like $100,000 a month, and so that's fine when times are good and you're arranging loads of mortgages and loads of insurances and you're getting all this money pour in. But as soon as that market, it was literally overnight, and then no one's lending money, no one's buying houses, everyone's freaked out, and it was really tough. So we weren't then arranging the money. We didn't have the income coming in, couldn't cover the expenses, and so we had to get rid of staff because that's obviously a big fixed cost. So we did that, and then it got to, I think it was the March or the April, and a few of the other senior team had already left. There was only me and Mel, the CEO, that were left, and it got to the point whereby I then had to go as well. And he advised that I go just for him to sort of try and keep it going as well. So yeah, I ended up having to then go. As I say, it was like the March or the April 2008, and the thing is that that's all that I had really known, financial services, and that was not the time to go in to try and find another job in financial services. That banking crisis of 2008. So again, going back to the stuff I've learned before about think outside the box. I was like, well, this is what it's like in the UK. I'm going to think outside the box now, and I'm going to go overseas. So yeah, went to Dubai, and that was a really interesting experience. This is like the May of 2008. Flew out to Dubai, and was working under the umbrella of a company called Globalite out there. They're still like going now, but it was a case of you're self-employed. You got to get your own leads and then generate your own appointments. And this is what I'm talking about, the Wolf of Wall Street environment. It was a great experience. I made sales during that time I was there, got great commission on those sales while I was there. But then when I started to realise, I always ask myself the same question, okay, would I buy this myself?
Yeah.
And no matter how good I was at actually selling it, if I wouldn't go near it, if I wouldn't take one out myself, then integrity wise, it doesn't see it right. And that was really difficult because I desperately wanted it to work. I wanted to get to a point whereby there was, I got the contacts, there was regular money coming in. I could then move my wife and the kids out there as well, and we could then. Yeah, I went. They weren't there. I was there on my own initially, just to make sure it would work, just to get it all set up. And so that's what we wanted. That we wanted to get out of the UK with everything that was happening, and go and set up, somewhere like Dubai, where it's sunny, it's tax-free, and beaches, and all the glitz and glamour that comes with Dubai.
Was your wife working at the same time?
She was on maternity.
Okay, all right. So there's a lot of pressure on you, like, to actually perform. Yeah.
Massive.
How do you handle that pressure?
It was definitely one of the toughest times of my life, because it wasn't just me and her. It was with that extra responsibility of young children as well. Once I realised that, okay, this isn't a good fit for me, selling these products, I was then thinking, what the hell do I do though?
Hi, everyone. You're listening to the Unrelenting Drive podcast. I just wanted to let you know, I started this podcast because over the years, I've had hundreds of the most inspiring conversations of my life with small business owners, and they really helped me grow and scale my own business and get my mindset right, even when times were really tough. I wanted to capture those conversations and make them available to other small business owners who are following in my footsteps. And I've just got a small request. If you enjoy this episode, if you find it really inspiring, if you find it helps you in your own business, then please just like it and subscribe to our YouTube channel. The more subscribers we get, the more we can invest in making the podcast better. So enjoy the episode.
Because I'd always not only had a job, but been good at the job. And then all of a sudden, I was just thinking, the thought of going back home, daughter was born in the November. Because of everything that had happened, we'd have to get rid of our cars. We had to move out of our house. Okay. So while I was living in Dubai, Alex, my wife, with our son, she'd moved in back in with her mum and dad. We owned the house, but then rented it out.
Okay.
So we knew that the mortgage would be covered, but we just couldn't afford because we didn't have any money coming in. We couldn't afford. So literally gone from having like the big executive car and nice house and all these nice things, and then all of a sudden, in the space of a few months, like nothing. So
How did it affect your family? Like back then, like when you did have nothing, was it a lot of tension in the house, or did you all come together?
yeah, so for Alex, my wife, is like, unbelievably she was unbelievably, and continues to be so, but she helped me to get through it. She was the one that said, you can do this. So the crazy idea of going out to Dubai, I floated that idea by her, and she was like, yeah, go for it, you can do it.
Okay.
So the support was there because I think she realised that we're very limited for options here in the UK, and so she it's not like there was any blame or anything like that. It was we were, I hate to use the word victim, but we were definitely subject to the external conditions of the economy. So, but it made it, because of that backdrop, it made the importance of me making a success of it in Dubai. It did make that a really important thing to do. But then when I realised that I'm going to have to come home here because there weren't any other options out in Dubai, so I came home in the November. So made it in time for when my daughter was born. I think she's 14, I'll say. Did that, and then I was going for job interviews for basically just financial advisor jobs down in London, though, because there was still demand in London for those sort of roles. But I wasn't getting them. It was tough having to deal with that rejection because, as I say, I wasn't used to that. I hadn't had that in my working life up to that point. So I would have been like 32 at this point. And so it was a case of, I'm just going to have to start another business. Like, I literally had no choice. I just get rejected from everywhere, and that was soul destroying. So I was like, right, I'm going to have to again sort this out myself. And I ended up, I remember, so we were living with Alex's mum and dad still. It was winter, freezing cold. They had a garage that had been set up as a bit of an office, but I was out there with one of these portable heaters. I had a phone, this portable heater. I was wrapped up. It was snowing outside, and I had an old database of like old clients that we'd had at the previous company, and so I hit that list and just the old basic thing of got appointments, and from the back of appointments then started selling insurances, more insurances than anything else. Just to sort of try and get cheaper insurances for people because they might have been sort of struggling with their own bills and that. So I'd get in the foot through the door would be like, let me try and save you some money on your insurances. And and literally just kicked it off like that. Started that, and then one of the old guys from the senior team with the previous company, I contacted him because I was aware, as good as I am at like getting all those bits done, going out, basically generating money. I'm not great at the other bits that come with running a business. The sort of more technical bit, and especially in financial services, the compliance side of things and all of that. So
Were you part of a network at that point?
yes, we were. Yeah. And so I contacted him. I said, look, doing this, do you fancy going in together? We can like set up a new business. And so we did that. And actually that went really, really well. We were affiliate. We were one of the partners with Money Supermarket. And so we were like one of the people that were getting our leads from there. And therefore, all of a sudden, because it was insurance, we transitioned then from what we were doing before, where we were in offices doing stuff face to face. Transition. This new company we could be national with this, and all we're doing is we're just dealing with leads that are coming in. We pay for those leads, obviously, and then we just call them quickly, and we do our normal thing over the phone. And we're a broker. We try and save money, and so that was good for a few years.
Okay.
But do you know what? I'll tell you what happened. It drove me insane when I wanted to get that there might be, when it comes to marketing, there might be something that is topical, that's news sensitive.
Yeah.
And I would want to try and get some marketing message out there that was relevant to something that was going on in the news.
Okay.
And we're part of a network. And so I remember getting these adverts put together, and then it would have to go and get approved. And that was taking 10 days to get this approval on an advert, by which time when it came back approved, it's like, well, it's gone now. Like, and that was almost like the straw that broke the camel's back. I didn't really want to set up another business in financial services, if I'm completely honest, but that's all that I knew. And after a few years, again, we were earning good money again, and moved back into our original house, and so things were going well again. But so by this time I'm like 35, I was so down. I was so down because I hated financial services. I honestly, with all the compliance as well and things like that.
Factually,
yeah. And I didn't know what to do to get out of that. And Alex, my wife, again, really supportive. She was like, well, if you do anything, like, what would it be? And at the time I was into my running and my fitness. I thought that's something that would be good. But you try and just start out as a personal trainer, and you don't really earn much money from it. And here we were. I didn't want to risk losing the house again.
Yeah.
So we chatted about it, and we thought, right, let's just give it another 6 months, and gave it another 6 months, and it didn't get any better. It got worse.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a point in my business, like I was about a year in, so this was about 8 years ago, and then we almost ran out of money, and well, I say I was the only one there at that point, and I was thinking, okay, I'm going to have to go get a job now, and then I had a few like spates of luck, although in hindsight I recognise them as just me doing enough of the right things paying off. But it took long enough to start paying off, and then just before it was about to go under, I started to get the cash in the bank, and it became sustainable again. And then that thing back then sticks with me all the way now. And I wonder, like, accountants especially, like more than most people, that we're aware of the impact of compounding. Like, getting a client like 5 years ago is better than getting a client today, because you'll have had that client for 5 years. And I kind of think, like, if I was a bit riskier with the money, or took more educated risks rather than sat on it and built that war chest, and then now I'm kind of overcompensating. But part of it as well is I think there's a book. Sorry, I know that there's a book, and it's called Profit First.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is one of the things that really gives me mixed signals, because like I at first I believed like don't use up your cash flows to invest in the business. I know it's a stupid thing to believe in hindsight, but that's probably what held me back a bit. Then I got to a point where I was actually comfortable spending money and growing the business using that money I'd built up. And then, you read Profit First, and then it essentially says, okay, pay yourself first, and then only grow out of your profits. And it's a bit of a mind game, because part of you, see stories of all these entrepreneurs where they're getting loans. Like, you got a loan for to buy your first business and do that management buyout. But if there wasn't that recession, it probably would be really successful. And so, you'd ask the question, was that the wrong decision to make at the time? Well, maybe, or not necessarily, or maybe there was a halfway house. But I think, what you're saying, it really resonates with me, because I've been there as well. And you're always, and I think part of it is, no one wants to be that guy with a failed business. Like, I know you had to because of extenuating circumstances, but there's always this pride or ego thing, and you're trying to think, what would people on the outside looking in see it as, and that plays a part in it as well. So I do kind of get what you're saying.
Oh, it does completely, as I say, especially given how big my ego was in my 20s, and I wasn't used to failure, and so all of a sudden for it to go the way that it did, I don't know if there's a little part of me that was using it conveniently to sort of say, I've got to get out of the UK to go and set up overseas, where perhaps they're riding out this credit crunch recession a little bit better. But whether there was a part of me that was just like, I've got to run away from this. I don't know if maybe there was a bit of me just like, this is like a really embarrassing situation and I've got to run away. I don't know, maybe. But when at the age of, because I don't know, Nisha, you might be able to answer this with sort of the people that you've come across over the years. I don't know very many people that are in a career that they've been in for, say, 20 odd years, that love it. Whereby they so many of the people that I know feel very trapped when they get to that middle age and kids and mortgage and cars and all of that stuff, rat race if you want to call it. And like, I don't really like what I do, but it earns me good money, and what else? I can't do anything else. I've just got to see this through.
Yeah, I think, when I think about that, I totally agree. But then when I look at my first part of my career, I guess, like my father was an accountant in business, and I kind of saw that as a something I could do as well, and it was something I was interested in. And I do sometimes wonder how much of that influence led my decision into that, and then, because I guess when you're younger, it can be really difficult to pick a career, and especially if you got that get up and go, you just want to do something and see if it works. Like I know the opposite side of that is, I know some young people who are just like, spend all day researching about what their next career would be, and then 5 years later they're still working in Starbucks, but trying to make that choice to get to that right career. And their peers who started just got that job straight away in anything, they're much further ahead. And I think when you work your way up a career, it's a lot easier to do a sideways move into another career or industry, because when you build up those soft skills, you're not just relying on your education and your grades anymore. You can go to an interview, people can see you're someone that can present, and they can see the different uses for you. So I think it's a normal thing to do, especially if you're the kind of person that initially just got into something because you're the kind of person that just wanted to do something.
I think it can become really difficult as well if it is your own business then. So as I say, this was my second business specifically within financial services. I'm 35 years old. I'm hating it. I am feeling trapped, but got all of those rat race things.
What did you hate about it? Because one thing I have realised is, if you, even within an industry, there's so many different careers and opportunities. Like I guess initially I was an accountant in my business, and then I focus more on staff development and client generation and client advisory. So my role over the last 9 years, if I was still doing what I was doing 9 years ago, I'd be like blowing my brains out, and I really struggle with that. I'd be insanely bored. But because I've managed to move around the business over that period of time, and explore new things, and I mean we know each other, so you kind of know my journey to redevelop our offering as well. So going from more traditional accountancy offering to the Apex program, where it's more rounded and nurturing in terms of helping people really scale up. But if I was just doing what we were doing before, I would probably be at a point where I'm just completely bored now. But we've got this vision, and I think is it Michael Beckwith? He said the pain pushes you until the vision pulls. So maybe if that can be, in fact, that's a fitness quote as well. I think it relates to the fitness industry, but I think when I apply it to business, I realized, I started my business because I wanted that freedom. I had that pain of not having that freedom, and I wanted that recognition. And then eventually I got to a point where I'd got those things, and I needed the next thing. And then that's where the vision really came into it. And I think I'd say, even though this business is like 9 years old now, I only really developed that vision about 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago. And that's where that pain, where it took over from that pain. And now it's like pulling me along, because I know there's business owners that need to benefit from my experience building my own business, not just my experience as an accountant.
I think to answer your question, what was it I hated about it? So this is what I was 17 years in, and I was bored of talking about insurances, bored of just, as I say, compliance, how slow things got. I was quite impulsive. If I see a good idea, I want to implement it quickly, and I hated feeling that I couldn't implement my ideas quickly.
Is that because you were constrained by the FCA regulations? And
absolutely, that's exactly it.
How is it going without you? Like,
I think it's fine. Yeah, I just got out. I just said to my business partner, "That's it. I'm done. I'm gonna." Honestly, I swear, thought I was having a midlife crisis, because I was like, "I'm gonna retrain as a personal trainer," and that was it. And that's what I did. And I remember, because it was 2012, August. I started just before the London Olympics started, and I was just in this field near the opposite Tesco in Hansbury and in Northampton, and I was just there in a field with some crappy equipment that I'd bootstrapped, that I got out of the boot of my car, and I was delivering these sessions, and I don't know, I got rid of the traditional suit, and I was then in a tracksuit, and it felt good. And that honeymoon period soon wore off. We just weren't earning enough money. It was, oh man, it was terrible. It was.
That sounds like my first year of business.
There's all those doubts then come in again. Like, what have you done? This is irresponsible, putting yourself first before the kids, and like all those things were coming into my head, because I was I don't know, it does make you sort of look at the world differently, doesn't it, when you become a parent and when you do have that extra responsibility. And there I was doing something as reckless, even though Alex, my wife, she was supporting me all the way. And the plan was she came in with me as well to help get things set up, because that's where her passion was as well, regarding fitness. And she'd gone through, since the birth of our second child, she'd had a hell of a lot of weight that she struggled to lose, and there was nothing out there that personal training was not something we could afford. One-to-one personal training, and just joining a gym wasn't an option, just because it was crap and it was intimidating. There was nothing out there that offered this small group personal training type of thing, whereby it's like something in between, whereby you still offer the accountability, the nutrition support, and setting goals with clients and all that kind of thing that you would get with a one-to-one personal trainer. You still get all of that, but because you're delivering the actual session in a small group, whereby everyone's similar age, same sex, and all that sort of thing. We chose ladies over 30, but because of that, you can bring the cost right down, and so therefore make it a lot more affordable. So those that really wanted personal training but couldn't afford it, then this is something that kind of that can help.
So you could scale it, reuse materials, or leverage materials even.
Exactly. And so that's what we decided to do, and it seemed like a great idea. And I remember the way that I got people to come and just try it out initially was like using Groupon offers, just putting offers out on Groupon. It was like, come and get 10 sessions for £10 or something like that, and of which we would get like 45% of that, I think it was. So I get £4.50 for someone signing up to come and do 10 sessions. But it was getting people through the door, onto the field, that I could then try and convert into a paying membership. And whilst it was working, it just wasn't moving quick enough, certainly not enough for us to be able to, again, just pay for all of our outgoings, which we trimmed as much as we could.
Because I guess you were at that point building up virality, weren't you? Because I was watching an interview, Nick Jenkins, the founder of Moonpig, and he was, he'd essentially said that he got to a point where he'd put £1 million of his own money, he had nothing left, and the investors were pulling out and saying, "Hey, stop putting money into it. You're going to need to pay rent and live after this." And he was like, "Well, I've got no more money to put in. I just put it all in." But he'd put £1 million of his own money because he did really well working out in Russia. And then he came back with all that money, put it all in Moonpig, and it still hadn't made a profit by then. And he was like, we were trying all these different types of marketing, and they just weren't working. And then he said, but one thing I noticed was I was looking at the numbers, and for every person that bought a card, another 1/3 of the person would then come back and buy another card. And we were growing by that just because of that little logo on the back. And I guess what you're describing there is that, I think business owners, you can get to a mindset where you can just advertise. But sometimes you've got to understand, you've got to build that virality through marketing and just through your existing client base, and then the rest, all you can do is then batten down the hatches, wait 2 years, keep everything going consistently, wait 2 years, and then suddenly it'll all pay off.
But the thing, looking back, that came along at just the right time, that I then completely immersed myself in, was Facebook ads. That and I was ahead of the curve because I felt I was desperate, and through desperation I had burned the ships. Okay, there was no going back. I could not go back to financial services, and through desperation I was just, I've got to find something else that's going to speed up this process, because these bills are just stacking up, and it was incredibly difficult. But at the back of my mind as well, I was thinking, I can't have another failure here. I can't do this again. And Facebook ads, well, they were nothing like what they are now, certainly with regards to the sort of stuff you could put out, and literally put out anything, before and after photos and everything, which you definitely can't do now. But that's what I was doing, and I was I paid money to mainly in America. It was like guys that were teaching how to do Facebook ads, like a bit like you get now with TikTok stuff, and that accelerated everything. I was like, didn't have that much money to spend, but any money that I did have went on that because I could see that was something that could accelerate our growth. And yeah, just completely immersed myself in it to the point where I all of a sudden then felt like a marketer rather than a personal trainer.
Yeah.
And when that happened, that changed everything, because then I could see the power of paid advertising. And so I started to then just monitor, right, click-through rates and how much is it costing to get not only a lead, but then someone on the phone, and then what's the conversion rate of people that I spoke to, and all of those. Once I realised that, it was a case of, so for every £100 that I spend, I'm getting, it was 10 times, I was getting £1,000 back.
Wow. Okay.
But that was just off the front end program.
Yeah.
That wasn't the exactly onto long-standing membership.
You still think Facebook ads are really effective? I mean, they cost a lot more now, don't they?
Yeah, but so in answer to your question, yes, because once we'd kind of cracked that, and don't get me wrong, those first 2 years were still incredibly hard work, but because of that predictability, it just felt like it was impossible to fail. It was just, as long as we keep doing this, then, and we managed to, once I'd moved out of that unit, actually, off that field, and we got our own unit then in Northampton, big sort of 3,000 square foot unit, and managed to negotiate a deal on that whereby it was staggered. So for the first 6 months, I don't think we paid any rent, and then it was staggered after that. It was like 50% and 70% and 8%. Then after the 11th month, that's when we paid the full amount of rent. Okay. And because of the way that we managed to negotiate that deal, and because of the predictability that came through the Facebook advertising, I could see that tied in really nicely with, I was like, well, in 6 months' time, that's where we're going to be membership-wise because of what we get from the ads. And so that allows us to just grow into this unit. And so we did that, and it worked incredibly well. And then after the 2 years, I remember I said to Alex, I want to franchise this. Yeah. I want to franchise, because, as I say, because of that predictability, all of a sudden then we were getting our systems right with regards to how, like, conversions and how to keep people and service people and everything. And so I remember sitting down with franchise consultants after 2 years in sort of different hotels, and certainly wanted to franchise it. And some of them were actually quite keen just to get you on board straight away, get your money and everything. But there was one that was just honest and said, if I were you, I'd give it 5 years. Okay. And so that was our plan, to get everything right in the first 5 years and then look to franchise it then.
So how long ago was that? When did you actually franchise?
First franchise was 2017. It was 5 years. It was 5 years later. And leading up to that, we put it to the test. We had some stress tests along the way. One of them being that we'd go away in the summer for 6 weeks and just see how the business ran without us being there day to day. We did that, and we then decided to put it through a serious stress test. We decided to move overseas, and we moved to Marbella in Spain in 2017, and which was amazing. Since we'd been traveling, we'd always wanted to live abroad, and like the Dubai thing obviously didn't work out, but we still wanted to live abroad. So we did that, and we set up our first franchise while we were living in Marbella.
Okay.
Because what I'd done is I'd set up another business, which was like a side hustle, which grew to a point, it's still going now, by the way, which we got a lot of our franchisees from, which was a marketing company purely for personal training. All I did was I would find campaigns that worked, I would then record. The videos were 5-10 minutes long, no more than that. And I'd just record exactly how I set it up, the exact wording, the exact images, what was working, the stuff that didn't work, the stuff that did work. And then I would just upload them to a library, so a member suite. And I did all of that, and then just grew this side hustle business that had tons of personal trainers and gym owners that were paying a monthly membership fee to just learn that stuff. So our first franchisee came from that group. So there was a lot of trust that had already been built up with regards to that. But like I say, it just seemed like a sensible thing to do regarding franchising because the advertising part was so predictable. It was a case of just trying to get this across to people that we'll do the marketing bit for you. You don't even have to learn that bit. We'll do that, and we'll help you get this predictable growth from nothing to here in this space of time. That takes a lot of the stress. Takes a lot of the stress from when you first set up a business. The other reason that I felt strongly about franchising, even though lots of people were advising me not to do it, was because I wanted to grow the business. I wanted to have multiple locations. We both did around the country, but we did not want to borrow money to fund that growth because of everything that had happened in the past. So franchising was the obvious route to go down.
Yeah, we've got clients where they put so much effort into raising money. I think, yeah, and sometimes, they put a lot of effort into just raising a small amount of money. And I'm like, just get a personal credit card, or just get a personal loan. There's no need to go to all that effort to do it through your business just for that small amount of money. But it does. That's why, like a lot of these larger businesses, they've got a finance director and a finance team just so they can get the numbers right, just to raise that money. And it's, maybe in some ways it's massively inefficient, but in other ways, I guess, there's probably businesses where the finance director is raising money just to pay their own salary. I did a video yesterday, and it was about, should you borrow to grow your business? And one thing I've realized over time is, and this is from my own mistakes as well as things I've observed, is if you don't have a strategy that works, borrowing to grow your business is just throwing the money away. But then what you're talking about, the Facebook stuff, at the point where the Facebook stuff works, then borrowing to back that, knowing then you've got a return, then pretty much what you're going to get out of what you borrow. And I think maybe some of the lessons I've learned, although I wasn't as extreme as some other people were, but early on I hadn't quite got something that worked, and I was still throwing money at lots of random stuff. Whereas really, there's a really good book which talks about starting your business on a shoestring. And it's just about like finding that minimum viable product and that idea where you can just find something that works on a really small scale before you start scaling it up. And I think if I was starting all over again, I would definitely go down that route and have the patience to test things. But no, you're right. But I think what you're saying with the franchise, it makes a lot of sense. And
for us, it does continue to make sense. That's how we've, I think, managed to grow the way that we have on the franchise business, is because of because we are so confident in the marketing strategy that we've got in place. And for most personal trainers, fitness professionals, they join the industry because they want to help people. They want to help people. There's a nice feeling that you get from a lot of job satisfaction that you get from helping someone go from A to B, and just to see that changing. It's not just the obvious transformation in body composition. It's everything that comes with it. It's the
demeanor, and
The problem is that you got a lot of fantastic personal trainers that have no idea how to market themselves, and so therefore they no, absolutely. So when we come along with our proposition of, look, join us, we'll take care of that marketing bit for you. We'll make sure that not only you're getting leads, but you're getting qualified leads that are from local ladies over 30 that complete an application form telling you why they need to do this program. Like, honestly, look, it's so refined now because we've tried and tested so many things over the years, and it's not just Facebook now, but it's Instagram, and now we're sort of like trying to do some stuff on TikTok as well. You kind of have to evolve with the times, but it is a space that works well with social media, the sort of fitness space.
TikTok's just crazy at the moment, isn't it? Because Alex was telling me about the video she did about how to put your coat on to go for a walk. And then she got like 15,000 views or something. And it was just her putting a coat on and some gloves and a hat. And
TikTok compared to the others, it's almost like people are tuning in to be entertained. It's a little bit like if you were to put this podcast out on TikTok, you'd have to take a 20-second, 30-second snippet and jazz it up and like use that if there's any bit in here where I don't know that would work on TikTok, whereby it kind of just stirs someone a little bit, even if it just agitates someone a little bit. The agitation is a good thing. With Facebook and Instagram, you can localize it. You can just do that pin drop when you're doing your targeting, and you can say, right, that's 4 miles of that pin drop where the studio is. We're going to focus on marketing just people that live within 4 miles, that are female, that are between 30 and 60. And you can really, like, being able to do that. Like, if you compare to what marketing used to be like, we used to sort of taking out ads in magazines and stuff like that. Like, this is so targeted. It's amazing. And right now, TikTok doesn't have the ability to do that. TikTok is more national stuff, and you almost rely on the algorithm to localize it. But in America right now, they're beta testing the local stuff. So we know that the local stuff is coming for TikTok. And when that does come, we are going to be all over it. When we have the ability, because actually they're behind the scenes, if you look at their ads manager, it's set up very, very similar to Facebook, but you don't have the ability, as I say, to localize it. So I think this year, 6 months or so, when we have that ability to do it, then it will be so good for us to be able to have another platform to use, because as good as Facebook is, it's not nice to feel too dependent on one lead source.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, this has been really insightful. I've just learned a lot of stuff about you I didn't know before. But yeah, I guess like to sort of end things off. So, what's that one bit of advice you'd give to someone starting out?
If there's one thing, just one,
okay,
learn how to sell. Whether it's yourself, whether it's a product, a service. Learn how to sell. Regardless of what happens, if you know how to sell, you will always be able to earn money. It's a little bit like in the old days, it's like having a trade. But selling you can use in any industry. Whether that's in financial services, like it's just like we're doing it in a completely different industry now, and just having that ability. A lot of people they think of selling as like the traditional used car salesman, and it's not. If you believe in what it is that you're selling, then just learn how to articulate yourself in a way whereby others are gonna want to buy it.
All right. Well, Ricky, thank you very much for joining us on the podcast. So you've been listening to Unrelenting Drive, and I will see you at the next episode.